And if anyone is listening, who's listening, wants to volunteer for November, we're going to need even more volunteers for that. So thank you to everyone who spent the time with me yesterday, and I look forward to doing it again in a few months.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
And thank you for all you did yesterday. It went well. Okay. I see Jan's hand is up. Jan, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make one point on the Moore Lane Bridge and the work that was just done on it. So we heard in the 724 town manager's report that we have an RFQ out for a long-term solution, and then we did a Clean Harbors piece of work a couple weeks ago. So if you look at the Clean Harbors work that was done, they clearly cleaned off the gunk that was on the abutment, and then they installed a board sort of attached to the concrete with a notch cut out of it and some absorbent material rolled up and pinched against the concrete. So it's a very small amount of absorbent material, and if we compare it to the last temporary measure, which was the same absorbent material on the entire bottom of the bridge, and that lasted 16 months or something. This is a 20th of the material there to absorb. So what's up there now is going to catch, a month or two's worth of what comes out. So I just don't quite see how we're going to make it to a long-term solution with that short-term solution. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Peter Warner, go ahead.
Thanks, Pam. I just following up on Jan, and I just had a question and a comment. My question is, I recall from maybe a month ago, you all voted for a $12,000 allocation for Clean Harbors to do this patchwork on the bridge. I'm wondering, was that all the cost? Because at this point, I think we're unclear on how much the town has invested from 2002 onward. My own calculations, and I'm happy to be contradicted or verified or with the actual statistics, but we're looking at least 120,000. And in the recent work, in my estimation of what your allocations amount to, in the most recent work, Clean Harbors was here all day on a Monday in early August. Then Winterset was here another day, and then my office is right here, so I see what's going on. Then Clean Harbors came back. So my question is did this cost more than 12 grand, or was all that work done and all that personnel for that covered in that $12,000 allocation, or did I miss something in a meeting that I wasn't present at? And the second point is to support Jan. Yeah, I went down there too, and I saw it's nailing. It would seem, and I don't really understand what the wood is for, but I guess it's to catch the drips. Is that the idea? It's not going to work. And John's right. It's not going to work in fairly short order. My second point, just second comment is that if you also look at the toxicity of this particular chemical and how it's literally eaten not just the paint away, but the foundation of the bridge. I mean, it's quite remarkable. I was looking back at the Masterson report, just how many chemicals we're talking about here. So I still am very curious if we can get some information about what we are actually dealing with. It's a level of toxicity, because its ability to sort of eat paint and the foundation of a bridge is pretty significant. So those are my comments. But I would love to know the figures. And I know Pam's very interested in fiduciary responsibility, so I'm asking for some fiduciary responsibility and accountability. How much have we spent on the bridge from 2002 to right now? How much have we spent? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Yep. Brennan, is that your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be happy to respond and just kind of give a quick update as well. So Peter, you made a kind of an informal records request a few weeks ago asking for the invoices from the Clean Harbors bill. We did spend time and resources to find those. They're still sitting in my office. You have not come by to see those. So that would inform you a little bit about the actual costs. And they are there if you'd like to come. As far as the most recent, what we have done is commission Clean Harbors to come, and they did work at the end of July to do a full cleaning of both of the abutments. And the $12,000, I believe, was the estimate that we had from them as far as how much it was going to be to get a crew up there for a day with overtime. I don't know what the final bill is going to be because I haven't received it yet, but my guess is it will be in that ballpark. I think what was actually approved was over $12,000 because we assumed it would be. So we've also done two things. We did have Clean Harbors come back up and do a secondary inspection about a week and a half after the initial cleaning to see what was going on there. And in the interim, I commissioned Winterset, which was our bridge worker that did work originally and has done other projects for the town, to come to Norwich and to install what we're calling that little barrier there, which is basically, as you said, a ledge that was installed into the abutment, which we are hoping is going to be able to catch drips as they come out of the bridge before they reach the stream below. Winterset will be back, I believe, tomorrow, and they're going to do a repainting of the bridge with an epoxy paint that's going to hopefully allow us to better visually determine if things are still coming down out of there. Where are they going? Are they get into the stream again? If that should happen in the future, it'll be easier for us to ascertain. And that was an estimate of about $5,500 for their work to come down and install and then come back and repaint it. So they did not do that all in one day because the weather and the wetness of the cement wouldn't allow the paint to occur. So that's where we are. You know, I think we're probably going to be in the ballpark of $17,000 to $20,000 for this 2024 mitigation. I do want people to be aware that we have to have these specialists come in, and they're not always inexpensive. And you know what we're dealing with is a hazardous material, so we have to treat it as such, and that adds complexity and expense to this. I would also just say to the community, we are really trying to do a diligent reaction to what our situation is right now. And I'm quite sure, despite the issues of the financial cost of the town, that if our efforts were to do nothing and let this continue, we would have an outcry of discontent. So I do hope people realize that this stuff costs money to do. And we are spending the money that we need to, as thoughtfully and frugally as we can, but it does cost money. That said, our long-term solution is, as noted, we have an RFQ out with a deadline for next Monday. We're very hopeful that we'll get at least one qualified engineering firm that would be able to step in quickly and try to help the town come up with a long-term solution that we can all, again, kind of thoughtfully study, review, and hopefully approve. And again, our timeline of when we would implement kind of a longer term solution for the bridge situation is unknown at this point. I would certainly hope it would be in the next building cycle, but I don't want to promise that. So again, that is just a quick synopsis. I was planning to talk about this a little bit more next meeting when I do my town manager's report. So we might have some more information. Certainly we'll know if we had a response to the RFQ, and that will be interesting to people. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brennan. Peter and Jan, if you have nothing else, if I could get you to take your hand down, and we'll move on. Okay.
I guess I did have a follow-up just point I'd like to make, if that's okay.
All right, I'll give you an additional minute.
Again, I just think, and I think Brendan is in a very tough spot here, and it was inherited by clear irresponsibility of the last town manager. But I think it's incumbent on the board to recognize that if we're approaching $150,000, what are we benefiting by continuing to kick the can down the road in terms of the cost? because we all know that replacing a bridge as it currently, its current iteration, is quite a bit of money. But there are other alternatives that people in town have been mentioning that are lower cost than what we have already spent, including a pedestrian bridge. So I'm wondering I guess my question is, what's the RFQ? What is that about, and who are we paying to do what with the RFQ, and what's that going to cost, and what's the goal there, I guess? Is this somebody who's going to study whether or not the bridge should come down, whether or not it is fixable? Because we've already been through that. We've been told it's not fixable. So
Okay, thank you, Peter.
I'm concerned that we're again spending all kinds of money after bad. That's all. Thank you.
Brennan?
So just a quick response to that, so folks are aware of what's going on. So the RFQ, request for qualifications, is to determine a qualified engineering consulting firm that would work with the town. So we have no cost estimated to that right now because we don't know what the scope of work is going to be right now. Really, we're trying to find somebody that will be able to come into the situation and be able to determine what possible solutions there could be. And I don't think it's as simple as saying we're just going to knee-jerk react and tear down the bridge. I think we've all, over the past several months, talked about, is that a responsible thing to do? And I don't know that it is. So that very well might be the ultimate outcome. But I think it's incumbent on the town leadership to study alternatives of what else could be done to mitigate the situation, which is that we have this bridge that is leaking a toxic or a hazardous emulsion into the stream below it. And so that's where we're going to go. And again, it's going to require some patience. Peter, I know you are in a butter there. You have a personal stake, and I understand your frustration. But I think we do have the responsibility to be fiscally studying all of the outcomes and all of the opportunities we would have and making the best decision we can once we know all of that. And that is, again, the purpose of the RFQ, is to hire a engineer with specialization in this type of work that can help the town.
I have a 10-second follow-up, Pam.
No, I'm sorry.
well,
We have
and
beat this. We have beat. I'm sorry.
Brennan
We're going to move on. Peter,
evoked my interest in this, and I just want to say, because I think it's important for me to say,
Peter?
this is not about me. I've been talking about this for 6 years, yes, but we are polluting a waterway in
and would
the
you please
center of
mute
our
him?
town. So it's not about me as an abutter. And I think I am within my rights to make that clear. And again, with all respect to Brennan, this is what the last town manager did to me. He said it was my problem and only my problem. This is a problem for the town, and I believe that the board needs to take some more responsibility. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Number 4, subcommittee appointments. Miranda included in the packet a form that was sent out to the committees that have subcommittees, and we got forms back from the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group and the Milk Fry Nature Area Committee. We also got a response back from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, which I missed, and it did not make it into this packet. So my apologies to Jan and to the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. We will deal with that on at the next meeting, the 28th. So tonight we have the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group and Milk Fry Nature Area. So I have put together, if I can find it, here we go, a motion for these appointments. What I'd like to do is have someone make the motion, and then we can have discussion if there is any. And then we'll move on to the other one. So would someone like to make a motion?
I actually have some broader questions. I don't know how you want to.
Okay, well, if you have something you want to discuss before we move on to that, what's your question or concern?
Yeah, so I think, and I apologize if, I don't want to rehash anything that maybe we've developed a consensus around. But what is the efficacy of us appointing a subcommittee to a committee? Like intellectually, that seems odd to me, right? Like I understand why we are the ones following council's advice as to why we need to appoint members, but they shouldn't be subcommittees of a committee. They should just be advisory committees to the select board and whomever else we determine. So rather than make motions to appoint members to a subcommittee of another town committee, we should just first create these committees, ideally with charges, although I see that we have some help with that. And then just do the appointments. I understand that this like meets a legal standard, but intellectually it still seems fraught. So that's all.
Okay. All right, Marcia, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're right, Roger. I think it begs the question about what's going on. But I think this initial action is to clean up something to make existing committees lawful. I think the bigger question that the board needs to take up is then how do we proceed going forward? And I would hope, it was always my intention that this work would lead to a review of all of the committees to see which ones are obsolete, which ones are subcommittees that maybe, are doing so much work they should be elevated to their own committee. What committees are missing, right? But I think at this point, we need to clean up what's been going on and let people get on with it and do that quickly so that we can then get to the real work of the board, which is to see how everything's working together, the big picture. And I think as we do this, I would suggest that whoever's sending out information to committees, it's got to be copied to the town manager's office so that things get there and we're not, the thing that started this, that was the real worry, was the planning commission, and that's not here tonight, even though they submitted it. So I think Brennan's office has to be included if they weren't, and it sounds like they weren't. So let's make sure that happens in the future.
You're right. The email came just to me and I missed it. And I reminded Jan that if he is going to submit something that is to be discussed by the board, he should definitely include the town manager. So we cleared that up. It was just a misunderstanding. So the other thing, to answer your question, Roger, I think is these subcommittees were created under other committees because they felt that this was information that would be valuable being fed back to the committee. So whether they should remain subcommittees or be their own committee and work in liaison with another committee, I mean, I think that's semantics. And Marcia's point is that we should just get this cleaned up as quickly as we can, and then we'll figure out those relationships and the status at a later date.
So just one more quick comment, and then I'm fine to do as you suggested procedurally. Okay, so that's fine, but like we've talked about sort of this idea of one Norwich for years. It was like the subject of discussion a lot in our hiring, last round of hiring for a town manager. It was an agenda item. Certainly, I remember as chair putting it on as an agenda item. So I'm fine doing the technical fix now. It's just like I don't, what is going to be the moment and what is going to be the method for actually creating a plan to work more cohesively. But
well, maybe that can come out of
honestly, whatever, like maybe we just don't want to, and that's fine too.
Well, maybe we can make that part of the work of creating and completing this handbook that Marcia's been working on.
Yep.
Just kind of wrap it all into one effort.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion for the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group.
I move to appoint the following members to the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group of the Norwich Conservation Commission. David Hubbard and David Hobson to a term ending March 2025. Lindsay Putnam, Peg Behrens, and Alex Gottlieb to a term ending March 2026. And Chris Rimmer, Doug Hardy, and Matt Hall to a term ending March 2027.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Thank you, Mary. Is there any further discussion? Any questions? Marcia?
These folks, I'm just making sure they were not appointed before by the select board, right?
I think so.
Well, some of them are on the Conservation Commission, but we've never appointed an Emerald Ash Borer Management Group. And it looks like I might have,
Added to get everybody.
I missed one. Let's see. Ed Marins is supposed to be to 2028. No, that can't be right.
So,
That's a
That's
3-year appointment.
So then wouldn't procedurally it make sense then to create the Emerald Ash Borer subcommittee? Like this is what I mean. Like it's like talk about insulting, like we're acknowledging the existence of someone else's creation. Okay. So are we creating the group and then making appointees, or are we just making appointees to someone else's group that's been created? Like this is wild.
I get your point, Roger. Maybe the motion should be to create the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group and to appoint the following members. Is that what you're getting at?
If I understand what we want to actually do. But yes, I think so. I don't know, but
Okay. All right, I would offer that friendly amendment.
I accept it.
I do too. So wait just a minute. How's that going to read?
That I move to create the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group of the Norwich Conservation Commission and to appoint the following members.
I move to create the Emerald Ash Borer, you're calling it management group?
That's what they call themselves, of the
Okay.
Norwich Conservation Commission.
Why don't you say instead, if I may, under the Norwich Conservation Commission? Because they're not of anything yet if they haven't been created by us.
Okay. All
So
right,
under the Norwich.
The Norwich-
Conservation-
Commission and to appoint the following members.
Okay,
cool.
Okay. All right, have you got that? You're
Yeah.
doing the minutes, right, Marcia? So I want to make sure
Yeah.
you get the.
and then what about
motion.
changes to the end dates? You've got end dates for Hubbard and Hobson. And then is it true that Putnam, Marins and Gottlieb are all the same date?
I see Marins is 2028, but we don't make 4-year appointments to this. So I think that should have been a 27.
Where
So
do
I
you
think
see
I'm
that?
correct on that.
I don't see 28 in mine.
At the top of the form.
Current members.
Oh, I'm
The-
sorry, I'm looking at the wrong committee.
Thanks.
You're right. Okay, down at the bottom. So Chris Rimmer, Doug Hardy, Matt Hall to 2027. Lindsay Putnam, Peg Marins, and Alex Gottlieb to 2026, and David Hobson, David Hubbard to 2025, which is what I do have in my motion. I did use the right membership.
Okay, so I'm gonna read this motion if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I move to create the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group under the Norwich Conservation Commission and to appoint the following members to the Emerald Ash Borer Management Group of the Norwich Conservation Commission. David Hubbard, David Hobson to a term ending March 25. Lindsay Putnam, Peg Marins, Alex Gottlieb to a term ending March 26, and Chris Rimmer, Doug Hardy, and Matt Hall to a term ending March 2027.
That's fine, except you had an of instead of an under for the second time you listed the group, but otherwise.
Under. Thank you.
Otherwise,
I'm under the weather. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I think we're clear on the motion. All right, I will ask for the vote. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay. The next one is the Milford Nature Area Committee. Again, we have the same concern of having to create the group and then appoint members. So we would need to add that wording in here.
Got it?
Okay. You want to go ahead and make the motion then, Marcia, since you
Yep.
are making that correction?
I move to create the Milt Fry Nature Area Subcommittee and to appoint the following members to the Milton Fry Nature Area Subcommittee of the Norwich Conservation Commission. Chris Morley and Chris Rimmer to a term ending March 2025. Lindsay Putnam and Derek Walker to a term ending March 2026. And Lynn Wood Andrews and Bree Swenson to a term ending March 2027.
Did you mean under the Norwich Conservation Commission, not of?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so Marcia's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Or is there any conversation or questions?
So the only thing I would say, because we are doing this technically and procedurally, is that you don't have any of the benefits that come with like an application and asking people questions. One of these members is in a butter. I'm curious to know, as we were just discussing, if it's an interest solely by being in a butter, or is there broader interest? Someone else is a staff member. Like, why do they have to join a committee? Wouldn't they do, like, how does it relate to their duties? What are some of the issues or non-issues with that? I'm fine doing the technical work, but this is, I don't
Right,
know.
and we did discuss that, and we said that we were going to waive the requirement for application, mostly for expediency. All right,
Yes,
any other comments?
and also we have like, we're landowners of this so this group, like, obviously there's a reciprocal license agreement, and that the school has access to the Milfry Nature Area, and that we're the landowner. So I'm curious to know, like, how this group like intersects with that. I don't know, like, it's fine, like, we'll do it, but it doesn't feel responsible.
Well, hopefully we'll get to a point where we can actually ask committees to come and make a presentation and we can ask them questions. Okay, all right, any other comments? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right. So we have now appointed 2 new committees, and we will do the other ones at the next meeting. Okay, Jan, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
I had a question relative to the legal opinion that was asked for at the last meeting, and whether that had been received, and whether we would be able to see it.
Okay. That is the next thing on our motion sheet, and that's something that I wanted to discuss with the board. Thank you. We have had a request for this legal opinion that was received. And so what is the board's pleasure in terms of making that document public? Would someone like to make a motion?
You want the
Or
motion
do you,
first?
no, go ahead if you want to have a comment.
When I read it, I didn't know why it had to be confidential. Seemed to me it would be useful to have that word out there.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
I agree that it should be made public.
Okay. Thank you. Marcia?
I think the only odd thing is that the first letter received didn't have that on the top. They normally do. But I think that this was specifically asked for, as Jan says, at the last meeting. And so the question is in response to what was asked. And I think it should be disclosed.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to waive attorney-client confidentiality to make the opinion letter received from town council dated August 5, 2024 regarding planning commission committees public, and to place this document in the packet for the August 28, 2024 regular select board meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
One second.
Thank you. If there are no further comments, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, it is now a public document. Okay,
Pam, just a quick question.
Sure.
We ended up postponing yesterday's planning commission meeting, so we'll probably have one next week. If it's a public document, is it acceptable to put it in the planning commission packet for next week, or would you rather have it in the select board packet for the 28th first?
I don't have a preference. Does anyone have an objection to the planning commission putting it in their packet for their meeting on the 20th?
I think it's a good idea. Get it out sooner.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
can I just ask a
Okay.
question?
sure.
Brennan, in the course of normal business, if something comes in and it's going in the packet, is it, it's a public records because it's come to you and it's gonna go in the packet? What would you do if somebody came in and said, can I see it before it's publicized? I always like to think of consistency.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this case, I would send it probably to Jan tomorrow because Jan has requested it. And I think his question is it then allowable to have it kind of publicly disseminated by a board? And again, it doesn't seem like there's harm there if it's going to be in the next select board packet either way. So I think it's fine.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Shall we move on to number 5?
Yeah.
The subcommittee and committee welcome letter. I was surprised to learn that there was such a thing. I think it's a great idea. So just want to get the board's feeling on the content of this letter and a consensus on who should be the signatory. So does anyone have any comments? Marcia, go ahead.
I think the people who normally do it should do it, which is the town manager's office.
Previously, it was signed by the administrative assistant to the town manager. I don't know if that's the appropriate individual, but Mary, you had a comment?
I'd like an answer to that question first. I assume that Brennan could answer that if he's willing to do so.
I saw the original before this was changed to put in our packet, and it was signed by the administrative assistant to the town manager.
Right.
Not the assistant town manager or the town manager, but the administrative assistant to the town manager.
Which we have now, right?
Right, that's Heidi is our
Heidi
new
Clausen.
assistant, right.
So I think it's fine, just it needs to be accountable to the person who sent it out. I think it's gracious to have a letter. I think it would be timely to send out a letter. There was a mix up with one of the appointees where she was appointed and then she showed up at a solid waste committee meeting and they didn't know she'd been appointed. It's extremely awkward. And I think if we want people to serve, we have to be, sort of up to date with our communications. And also, I just think the letter's really nice. It's gracious. It's like, hey, thanks for stepping up and helping our town. But as far as who signs it, Brennan, may I ask Brennan?
Sure.
Is it convenient for the, let's see, do I get the title right? Assistant town manager? Is that her title?
Assistant to the town manager.
Assistant to the town manager to sign this, or what would
I think it's
work
actually-
for your office?
Yeah, the title is actually administrative assistant.
Okay,
So this, I guess, had been the past practice where the letter, once an appointment was made, would come from the town manager's office. I think Miranda had been doing that. I think when Debbie Wade was here in her capacity, that shifted to her. And then when she left, I think we actually had a tenure there where it just wasn't, they weren't being sent. So, I mean, I guess it's a select board appointment. It would be a little extra work to have the chair of the select board send the actual letter, although, you know, it's a template. It really is just filling in a name. So I'm up for either or. It can continue to come out of the town manager's office. It would probably be assigned again to the administrative assistant, just as kind of a clerical piece of work. It might make sense on the other side of that to have it come directly from the chair of the board that appointed the person. And then, Mary, to your point, I think what we would add in an updated letter would be a CC to the chair of the committee or commission, and that would also kind of alert them that an appointment had been made in case they missed it. So I think that would be a good practice.
That's on
Yeah,
there.
that-
Oh, it is.
Miranda added that after our meeting. Yeah,
Okay.
because it wasn't on there before, and so there wasn't a communication
Right.
to the committee chair to let them know that they had a new member. So,
Exactly, a little mix up.
yeah, so
That's a
our,
good thing
there
to
were some
add.
gaps in our communication. I have no problem signing it. It does say the select board is pleased to appoint you. If we were to have someone in the town manager's office sign it, I think the wording should be a little different.
It's very nice to come from the chair, if you don't mind doing that, Pam.
I don't mind doing it.
Okay. Well, I would think that would be a very nice way to do it. That's my opinion.
Okay. All right. I did prepare a motion, and I don't know if this is something that we even need a motion for, but it's up to the board whether you want to just do this as consensus or if you want to make a formal motion for it.
I think we have a notion that if we took action, we should have a motion.
Okay. All right, Marcia, go ahead.
Yeah, I think given how we've seen it's pretty simple for things to slip between the cracks, I would rather that it was not just coming from Pam or whoever the current chair is. I think it should be also from the town manager's office, or prepared by the town manager's office, or copied to the town manager's office, because they're the ones that are keeping track of actually who's being appointed and letting us know. And I think for consistency, one of the things that I had recommended in the handbook was that one document be kept for this record, and that it be managed by the town manager's office and put on the web. So what I'm trying to convey here is that board members come and go, chairs change all the time. What we need is to make sure that there's a consistency, and I would like to see the town manager's office involved.
Okay, my thinking is that the town manager's office would, after the meeting, they would draft the letter and let me know that it was here to be signed, and I'll come in and sign it. And I'm told that a copy of this also goes into the vault in the town clerk's records to keep track of who is on these committees. So there is a protocol for keeping track of all this.
Yes, I think the signatory doesn't matter, but I do think the process needs to just be owned by whatever administration shop is set up in the town manager's office. And just, you can just rewrite the letter to say, on behalf of the town of Norwich, or like, you know, the town of Norwich thanks you. Because again, we've been talking about one town, one vision. So just have it be addressed as the town of Norwich, and then have Brennan and the chair sign. Doesn't
Okay.
matter, but the process should be owned by town staff.
Right, yeah. My understanding from Miranda the other day was this is something that was done under Nancy Kramer and Neil Fulton. But then when Miranda started, she wasn't informed that this was a process that was supposed to continue. And so it dropped off for a while, but now we're picking it back up again and trying to make sure that everyone is properly welcomed as a new committee member and thanking them for stepping up.
Yeah, that's great.
It's like a
Okay.
good practice.
Yeah, I think it is a great practice because, you know, we struggle to get people to serve, and so we want them to know that we appreciate their efforts.
Exactly.
Okay, so does someone want to make a motion on this?
I'll do it. I move to approve the committee/subcommittee welcome letter to be sent to every person appointed by the select board to serve on a committee or subcommittee.
A second.
Okay. All right, any comments before we vote? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes,
Roger,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we have formalized that. Next item is the better bin. I have license renewal here, but then when I looked at the invoice, it's talking about a subscription. So we are renewing our subscription for 1 year. And I see Andy is here. So does anyone have any questions for Andy? Priscilla?
Hi, Andy. It says in here that they were doing analytics. And I'm curious, can you tell us what they've reported and have there been changes in the amount of contaminants?
Sure. Well, Andy shared Hazen Street of Norwich. I have gotten monthly emails from them reporting user data. So they're talking about the number of users. They're talking about how many searches, what kind of searches, like they get specific product things. So it's something that's just coming to me, but if anyone is interested, I could pass that along to the board or, whomever would be interested to see that. So, and sorry, the other part of your question.
I mean, is it helping? That's basically what I
It's
want
hard to tell. I mean, honestly, I will tell you that.
You don't have a baseline year yet.
Yeah, we don't have the baseline. So that's kind of what I was hoping to get, is just get more information and more data over time to see if we could do that. I can tell you we have 133 users. We get about 100 searches per month on that. So, that people are kind of looking to make sure that they're recycling the product correctly. So that's, kind of some of the baseline stuff. And I will say also that the person is the group Better Bin, they're very easy to work with, and they are able to customize the layout. And if we want to put a special information up there. So like this winter, we had a styrofoam collection. We were able to put that on the app. We had, special instructions for like how to recycle wrapping paper, Christmas trees, or, we can sort of tailor it a little bit. So that's, something that they're able to do too. So we can kind of get some of those messages out. Bottom line though, I would like to get more people using it. So, and I have noticed that once I post, on the listserv or whatever it is, we do get more traffic to it. So I think with our committee now having the new member, one of the other committee members has been busy with another project. So I think I'm hoping to get a little more life into the committee and just sort of get someone focused on that and kind of publicize and try to get more action that way. So.
Great, thank you. Mary?
I have a question which perhaps you can't answer, which is what effect is it having on the collections? For instance, I think Priscilla mentioned contamination rate.
Right.
How do we know how well we're doing there? And then is it just a matter of checking with Casella or what?
Well, actually, so in the process where we were looking at the recommendations a month ago or a couple months ago with Jordan, he and I had presented about, like the rates. So we got a lot of that information. So having that as a baseline now, we can start using that to see over time where we're at. I honestly can't tell you at this point because we didn't really kind of know what it was before. So without some of that historical data, but now that we have that for a year, if we can start getting that data from the town manager's office or whomever had, I think Miranda had made some of that information accessible to us, we would be able to then, compare over time, just kind of track where we are.
I have one more follow-up.
Sure.
So I think there are going to be people who love using the apps and love learning about what goes into the waste stream and so forth. And then there are those who are kind of going to need a cardboard sign with a big Sharpie message. They're real simple.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm just hoping that is a parallel effort that could happen, especially
Additional signage.
people who are in a rush, they never really thought about solid waste and suddenly they got to deal with it, or, it's a family member, okay, you go do it this week, and they have no clue. So I'm hoping that there's a parallel effort that's really simple and, kind of basic
Yeah,
to take care of some of these things. So,
I think certainly having an analog, version where we can just say, this is where you go,
right.
to get this information. We actually made a pamphlet a year ago.
Yeah, lovely.
I would get more of that out. And I think if, working with the website, trying to get revamped sort of the town, at least certainly the committees page or the town transfer stations page, just to get a lot of this information. We have to work with Lily's office. So, over time, we've been trying to make updates on some of that stuff too, just to get it up to date, because a lot of that stuff that's been on there is kind of out of date. So.
Thank you for doing this.
Sure, gladly.
Marcia, go ahead.
Just a general comment mostly for Brennan, but when we have contracts, I always look at choice of law, and this one is Wisconsin, which is unfortunate. It's much better for us if it's in Vermont, for obvious reasons. And then I'm just wondering, Matt, any problems that you have seen or worries about images? Because I know that the advertising stuff can sometimes be maybe not what a town wants to have an association with. Any sort of concerns about that?
Yeah, I mean, I could follow up with her and just get, more detail and see if we can sort of leave that part out of it. I think it's a package that they use, but I honestly don't know. But I can certainly follow up and get back in touch.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to authorize the town manager to renew the Better Bin subscription for the period July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025 for an annual fee of $1,500.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. All right, if there are no further comments, Peter Orner, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to Andy for all the work he does on behalf of the town. He works very hard and I really appreciate it. That's all.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Then I'm a yes. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for renewing that, and
Well, thank you for what you do, Andy.
yeah, glad to do it. All right, thanks.
All right,
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, thank you.
okay. The next item is the fire district invoice for fire protection. And as I mentioned earlier, all of the information on this is in the correspondence from the fire department. It's pages 134 to 141. And then the fire district correspondence is 142 to 187, with the invoice being on page 160. I guess at this point, I would ask if anyone has any questions or comments they would like to make on the topic.
So
I have
Yeah, go ahead.
lots of comments. Acknowledging that I live in the fire district, I pay fire district taxes. I guess an officer of the fire district. I'm the auditor, and I've been going to the meetings for 30 years. And I was surprised by where I came out. The position taken by the fire department, I think, is very reasonable on so many points. In terms of, this is a system that does serve primarily the village. And I would also note that when I read the disaster hazard plan for Thetford, one of the deficiencies that was noted about Thetford is that they actually don't have a very reliable source of water mains in case they have some water issues with wells or or streams that dry up or droughts or something like that. So it's actually a big plus for our town. However, I think, and it concerns me that the fire district is basing too much of its argument, in my opinion, on a study done in 1967 in, I think it was
Indiana. or something.
yeah, I mean, a town that really did not seem comparable to Norwich. However, I mean, we do allocate, the fire district does allocate a lot of its water. I mean, it says the reservoir's total capacity, 50 to 68% of it is allocated for fire suppression. Obviously, the fire department does training on the hydrants. They can fill up as needed for their tanker trucks. And Barbara Courier's memo from 2018 or something said, it seemed that at that point, and we all know costs have gone up, the fire district was spending around $35,000 a year just maintaining the hydrants. So I think that, you know, for the town to think that we could pay half of that is really not terribly reasonable. I think there's a middle ground between what the fire department is suggesting it would like to pay and what the fire district is requesting. And it's unfortunate we didn't have this discussion last fall, but we're having it now.
Okay, Roger, you wanted to say something?
I just wasn't sure what is. So the motion says it suggests that the presumptive action is to pay this bill. Is that what is being asked of the board?
Yeah.
Well, the motion is to pay the bill, and it's, you know, it's a vote of the board whether that motion is approved or denied.
Okay.
And the reason that this is on our agenda tonight is that this is our last opportunity to approve something that would be paid from FY24 operational funds. Tomorrow is the 45th day, according to our policy. So we need to make a decision tonight on whether we will pay this invoice or not.
Okay, that is helpful context. Thank you, because I wasn't sure why it was coming back to us, because as it doesn't seem like there's any new information being here. And so my answer is going to be the same, which is I would like a mutually agreed upon legal process for fact finding and resolution. Like, that's what we need to do. Like, I don't agree with the information as presented, and so I wouldn't authorize this expenditure if asked. So I would also say that it's the town manager's prerogative. This is a town manager duty, but it seems like his office has also supported the fire department in, you know, disagreeing with the evidence that was presented for the bill. So I would just simply say, in my role here, that we need to begin to determine the terms and the process for the resolution. And
Right.
I think it's you do mediation, right? You do legal fact finding, right? You do, you know, whatever is needed. And if we should agree to how the table is set and just work on it. But I'm not paying the bill if asked as a board member. So thanks.
Okay. Marcia, go ahead.
So I've read that gripping document, How to Form a Fire District, that's put out by the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation. And it says that there's supposed to be a certificate of doings because these fire districts are created by select boards. And I think ours was created in something like 1922. So I think I'd like to see first and foremost what that says. And then start from there. We need to know what it says, if anything, about the extent to which voters in town who are not in the fire district are required to pay a tax to support the fire district. And then I'd also like to see some evidence about what the fire district has done in terms of exhausting their options. There's a whole list of grants and loans and other assistance available to fire districts. in said interesting how-to manual. And so I think rather than look to the bigger pocket in town, we should look to see what actually is available and what's been done, and then leave it to the town manager.
Priscilla, go ahead. One initial follow-up, in terms of grants. The fire district never qualifies for grants because it's a very well-run fire district that meets all the requirements and has qualified water operators and attests its water frequently and has very high quality water. And the town of Norwich has a very high median income. Those things disqualify us because the grants are designed primarily to help struggling systems in struggling towns where their water isn't very good, their infrastructure isn't very good, and they really can't afford to do anything. So grants is not a possible way to go. Let us not forget that both sides say, and if you talk to them in person, there is not animosity between the two sides. They don't want that to develop. Both sides recognize we're in this together. We would like to have this as cordially as possible. I'm really disappointed that we don't have anybody, as far as I can tell, from either the fire district or the fire department here tonight.
I was told that the 3 members of the Prudential Committee are all on vacation this week.
That could, it's summer.
So we shouldn't expect them to be here, so.
No, but it's too bad. I also think it's reprehensible that we haven't dealt with this issue sooner, and now, it's either we do or we don't, and to start saying, let's go do lots of legal investigations and stuff, is kind of, to me, a little late right now. And it would be good to have the two sides sit down, which they really haven't been doing, and really try and work this out. But I think at this point, this is a bill that we've had in front of us since March, and we've somewhat blithely just decided to disregard it. And as has been pointed out, if this were a bill from a dispatch service, we'd pay it. And so my inclination is, okay, pay this, and let's figure out what the cost should be going into the budget henceforward.
All right, thank you. Mary, go ahead.
I think we should not pay this bill, unfortunately. I think the costs have kind of outstripped the fire district's ability to manage, and that it's a bigger problem than what the fire district can manage in its present iteration. I think it has to be a larger solution, like a charter, some different framework, in order to make it actually work. I just think it's a cost shifting measure by the fire district. And I think it's a desperate measure, that the costs have really ballooned up and grants are not easy to get. So it's like the framework doesn't work. It's not a matter of ill will or anything like that, but the way this is set up is not sustainable. And I'm not going to vote to pay this bill. And, could hold the line and just say, okay, not paying the bill, also not solving the problem. Could go that direction, so that the effort has to be in the fire district. But, I do think there might be an opportunity to form a town charter and resolve this in that way with some special arrangement. But that's a big deal. So,
well, to Priscilla's point, the select board received an email from the fire district back in July of 2022. So it is a little late to be contesting these charges when nothing was said 2 years ago about maybe we should sit down and talk and try to figure out how to go forward.
Well, I beg to say, I think there was discussion at the time. I seem to remember Rod Francis having discussions, and I remember the board discussing the bill and voting against paying it. So it was brought up, but I think, in the interim, we had change of administration and change of board members and everything, which is what always happens. So I think, I'm just going to say, I really would like to see the initial documents. And I mean, there's a good list of grants in this, grants, loans and everything. And I would like to see that they have actually turned them down so that we can figure this out. But I also think we're bright bunnies and we can probably come up with a charter. And it may be that it's time to do that for many reasons in this town. And I looked up how you dissolve a fire district. The fire district does votes to do it. And if they can't pay their bills, by law, they have to be able to pay their bills. And if they're having a problem, then they may have to think about dissolution.
I think too, the reason why we're able, this board, some of the board members are discussing things like a charter, because that was an informal legal inquiry from prior management, right? We're like, as Marcia alluded to, what would be an effective legal solution? And they said, well, the easiest, again, this wasn't, I don't think, formal legal opinion, but it was an inquiry, and the charter was suggested. It was not broached in this kind of sit down face-to-face meeting that people seem to be pining for, because it's very clear that it was made clear that the district itself is not of an unanimous opinion. And when you're working on the affairs of the town, why would you pursue something that another partner is inherently disinterested in? They'll just move on to the many other things that they have to do. So, I mean, again, just set the table with a process for resolution. And I imagine it sounds like something like mediation or legal fact finding. And that's just what you do. I don't necessarily think that is the most amazing use of town resources, right? Those are legal bills ultimately, but it is what you might have to do.
Priscilla, for a number of years, the fire district has had conversations, at least among itself, and apparently very informally and sporadically with town management, about the idea of a merger between the fire district, which is a separate municipality within the town, and the town. And the current board was quite enthusiastic about this idea when they all were new on the board. And I think it feels as though it's become apparent that the town really isn't interested in doing it. And when you have a board that focuses very harmoniously and solely on just good water and what we need for good water, you're probably going to have a better water system than if it's just one more thing that's in the town. But, the fire district, I mean, I don't believe anybody currently in this room except me, has been to a fire district meeting in the 30 years or so I've been going. You might find it interesting. Maybe you went to one.
I've been to a few. I've been to a few.
I attended one.
We've all been in the room before. We've all had this face-to-face that you have been alluding to.
Have you indeed? Well, I don't know. I go to their regular meetings, and I don't have recollection, but that's beside the point. I just don't think this is a productive discussion right now. I think we need to say, are we going to honor this bill and figure this out with more energy and enthusiasm than has been happening before? Or are we going to just tell the fire district to stuff it?
Mary, go ahead.
I think that it's upsetting that we have a big bill and, you look at the graph, you can see the costs have gone up. And the fire district needs to pay their bills and the costs are astronomical. The other aspect of the fire district, it's more complicated than just providing potable water and fire suppression water, because there's also the matter of sidewalks. And there's also the matter of the former reservoir land, which is mostly in conservation. So it actually is a larger problem than just thinking about whether to pay this bill or not. but not paying the bill is sort of like drawing a little line and saying we can't ignore this. It's like a very large elephant in the room at this point, even on the basis of water. We haven't talked at all about sidewalks, because that graph would be way off the charts. Okay. So, you know, it's emotional, but I think there probably is a way forward. And we do have smart people in town, and we can cooperate and try to figure something out. But short term, I'm not paying that bill, or I'm not voting to pay that.
Okay. Any other board comments? I see Peter Orner's hand is up again. Peter? Oh, he took his hand down.
I
Okay.
know, I'm here. I just making dinner. Just overhearing. I wanted to just comment on something Marcia mentioned earlier about grants. It's an argument that we heard a number of times when we were talking about sidewalks and pedestrian safety, is that, oh, they're not going to fund such a wealthy town. There's really, when we looked into it, there's really no evidence for that. So I wonder, you know, if Priscilla, your point about, you know, Norwich being too rich to get things, I wonder if that's entirely backed up by fact. And I would look into it. This is not an issue I know much about, except I would say that talking about your neighbors and friends and our water. So it would seem that this is far a greater issue than the bill. But I appreciate very much the exercise of fiduciary responsibility here in discussing this bill, and I wish it would apply to other areas. And also the other thing, you mentioned the fire department. I'm sure if they were invited, Chief Northern or Deputy Sweat would certainly be present. So it's unusual for them not to be at a meeting that they should be at. So if it just seems like you have to get your guys together, and if this is a discussion about fire district, you should invite the fire district. And if it has to do with the fire department and fire suppression, you should invite the fire department. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
Their materials that the department submitted are the basis of our discussion, right?
Yes, they
I
did
read
submit
them anyway.
and they requested that it be in this packet.
I
So
thought
they
Matt,
were
I thought Matt
aware that
said
it was here.
I thought like it was kind of like, because there were two from the fire department. One was sort of the logos and one was sort of like the pathos. Like I thought they were both like a good set of, you know.
Okay. Brennan?
Just to clarify, so I know the chief is actually out of town on basically a work conference, and the deputy chief is on vacation. So that is the reason neither of them are present today.
Everybody's on vacation.
Yeah, Prudential Committee's on vacation, Matt's on vacation. Yeah, it's that time of year. Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to pay the March 6, 2024 fire district invoice for fire protection assessment / hydrant use from January 2024 to June 30, 2024 in the amount of $30,000 from FY24 operational funds.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? I'll second the motion.
What have we paid to date in support of this item? Have we paid anything to date? Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Brennan?
Yes, so we received a $30,000 invoice last fall, and we paid that. So $30,000 has been paid for this operational cycle. We had budgeted $34,000 in the fiscal year 24 budget. One alternative I might suggest is, if the board is uncomfortable paying the $30,000, we could at least pay up to the amount that was budgeted, which would be $4,000. I know that won't solve the fire district's monetary problems, but it might be a gesture of good faith there. I think just again, as I'm speaking, you know, the next year, they're budgeting $90,000. So I just want us to be aware, you know, this is not going to go away. I'm not sure exactly what the solution is here, but if there is some guidance that comes after this vote as to what else we can try to do other than, try to set up this meeting that's proven very, very difficult to get everybody in the room together, I'd be interested because, I think it does seek a long-term solution here.
So just because we're in discussion, we've previously paid what we've previously budgeted for. So the 4,000 has been the bill, and that is what we've paid prior to this. No.
We were invoiced $30,000, half of the amount that they told us that would be due. We've paid the 30,000. We budgeted 34,000. So there's still $4,000 in the budget. But I would also point out that at our last meeting, we saw a preliminary June 30 report that looked like we were going to have something in the neighborhood of $600,000 surplus. So, that adds a wrinkle in my mind that we're sitting here on somewhere north of $500,000 in surplus, and we're telling them, no, we can't pay this invoice. It's not that we can't pay it, it's that we don't want to.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of we're choosing. Okay. All right. I'm not going to acknowledge that.
Brennan?
No, I
Brennan,
just want to be clear that I think we do need to get the fiscal year completed, and it won't be audited for quite some time, but I'm not quite comfortable throwing around numbers of surplus at this point until we've gotten some direction from the finance director on where we actually see ourselves ending the year.
I think we can be comfortable in saying it will be at least $30,000. Yes. Mary, go ahead.
I have a question. It's a statutory question. So if the fire district is required by statute to pay their bills, what is the consequence of state law if they won't or can't? Would the state dissolve the district? No. Can a district go bankrupt?
Well, I don't think
by statute, they're supposed to be able to pay their bills. There's your problem.
But what is, if they cannot pay their bills, is there a remedy? Is there a consequence?
I couldn't find one, but I think that if you can't do what the statute says you're supposed to do, somebody's going to raise their hand, right? So I guess, the people in the fire district, if they can't pay their own bills, they're going to have a hard discussion because, they're a separate entity. But I think looking to another entity to pay their bills without any basis, this select board in 1922 created that fire district. And we need to know what the terms were. Because, nowadays, you should really read the how-to book. It's great. But nowadays, they say you shouldn't put things in about rates. Maybe they did put something in about rates back then. And so we should be looking at that. It might answer the whole question. But it takes the legislature has to dissolve them, is what I've sort of gleaned from my research, which, shouldn't be considered the final word on anything, but I believe that the legislature would dissolve them eventually. And I think that before we got to that point, the town might just want to, have that hard conversation with them and figure out what we want to do in terms of managing water, managing sidewalks. And maybe it is time. I know it sends shivers up people's spine to think about having to do a charter, but maybe it's time that we should do it. It could clear up a lot of problems that we have in Norwich.
Well, I don't think we should jump to the conclusion that they would have to dissolve if we don't pay this bill. I think that's
a question.
But
it's a question.
Yeah, I understand, but it's
kind of poke in that direction.
No, I'm just saying that I'm not sure we should go there because they have to figure out how to pay their bills, and we shouldn't hypothesize about what that might look like or whatever.
It's a question. It's not a hypothesis.
Okay. All right.
Can I just ask
Priscilla?
one? I I'm very confused as to like why this is being asked of us. So Brennan, did you ask this to be on the agenda because you, and in collaboration with your the fire department who you oversee, had determined that this is not something that makes sense, for lack of a better explanation?
Roger, Priscilla raised her hand before you spoke, so I'm going to call on Priscilla. Go ahead.
I would like to remind people that I don't think this is still going on, but for many, many years until fairly recently, the town taxed the fire district for fire district land that was outside of this was watershed protection land that was outside of the fire district boundaries. Which, didn't feel too good for the 300 and some households that had to pay that. But also, I just think it's a grave discourtesy that we were billed this in March, and here we are on the very last day, we can decide just saying, well, we don't feel like paying it. It's rude. It doesn't make for good relations. And as Pam said, we've got some money. It isn't going to put the town in the hole, and we need to start a real conversation between the two municipalities, essentially, about what we're going to do.
Mary, go ahead.
I think I don't know about rude, but I just think that to me, it's a cost shifting measure by the fire district, because the costs are just ballooning out of sight. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's legal for the fire district to expect the rest of the town to pay these astronomical rates. It's not really a matter of rudeness, but I don't know if it's like a little mini crisis or something. It doesn't feel good to talk this way, because I think, I think as a town, we do want to work it out. But if we just pay this bill and pay the next bill, pay the 60,000, pay the 90,000, pay the 120,000, we're not dealing with the problem. So I think this is a gesture. We can pay the 4,000 that's left, because we did budget that. But as far as, more increases, I am not interested. I think it's time to talk about some alternative structures. And also that in 1922, the town was very different. And I think it had probably kind of a really cool can-do attitude. Look, we've got water, we've got a watershed, we can build a dam, we can make this work. And probably for the first time, the people in the village had fire suppression and potable water. That's a very can-do attitude. So I think we can have a can-do attitude and fix this too, but it won't be in a 1922 context. It'll be in the context of 2024 or later, and what we have to deal with now.
Okay.
So can I ask my question now?
All right, go ahead.
So why are we being asked anything about this? If it's a bill, it goes to the town manager squarely under your duties. So why, to Priscilla's point about sort of camaraderie or it's just it just seems like this conversation is structured to not be great. And the reason why we have a town manager is to not sort of embarrass the town as we all sort of pontificate about paying our bills. So what is going on here? Why are we being asked? Do you need support in not paying this bill?
So Roger, this was put on the agenda by the board chair.
What the hell?
And we have tried, we met, as I've said before, on April 29th with a representative of the Prudential Committee, and we had a memorandum of understanding as the goal that we would reach after discussion.
That's great.
Again, I did not hear the meeting adjourned with, they were going to come back to the group for a second meeting at some point in the near future. That was how it was left. In the middle of July was the next time I was contacted, and it was, let's try to set up a meeting here in the next couple weeks. And it's been, as we just said, a scheduling disaster of trying to get together and meet. So I believe the board chair, recognizing that if this bill was going to be paid out of the fiscal year 24 operating funds, it would have to be a decision that came tonight. I am not in a position right now to say that this is a bill that should be paid, because I have not had the opportunity and been convinced that this is a reasonable bill. If I can just add one more thing. I had floated at the last meeting that a solution outside of trying to create a new charter or trying to figure out how to dissolve or absorb a fire district would be to put this onto the ballot in November for the voters of Norwich to look at as, this is the cost. This is, again, there would be a chance for the Prudential Committee to justify that this $120,000 next year and the $90,000 that we would be looking at, it's basically already in this year's budget, 90,000. But to me, that would be a solution of, does the town support this type of investment in the capital improvements and infrastructure needs of the fire district? And if that's the case, it's pretty easy. We put it into the budget. It's a set amount that we know we're going to pay, and we pay it next year. I think we've hit the problem here, which is, culminating tonight of, we didn't want to take this up. We kicked it down the road. Nobody wanted to meet, or nobody could meet. And so now, again, on the last night where it can be appropriated to the fiscal year 24 budget, we're having the public discussion.
So I just want to say, so thank you, Brennan. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that Brennan began a process of this preferred communication, right? The in-person group meeting. He had began that process. It had reasonable scheduling difficulties. They came up as a group that a good goal for our discussions should be some kind of legal agreement. And then Brennan, in the back of his mind, said that, we might actually just have another third party, right? The public at large make this decision if we can't sort of have a process that we collaborate on together. And so we have to consider that this discussion that didn't have a benefit of the process that Brennan was proposing just does more harm than good. So I would just say that when we do agenda setting with the chair and the town manager, that the chair should really be gracious and deferential to the town managers, thinking through what would be fully baked for discussion. I recognize that this is the last chance to pay this bill, but Brennan's office had made it clear, and it's his responsibility to do this work, that he wasn't going to do that until he had more information. So we should allow him in a town manager's report to update us on that process. So I don't like that we discussed it this way either. Okay, it doesn't look like one Norwich, and we should have been more professional and followed the work of the professional.
Priscilla, do you want to
No.
say something? Okay.
Unreal.
Marcia?
So, it's not like years ago when I sat and listened to the presentation, and it was going to go 30,000, which was up, like double, and then 60,000, then 90, then 120. So this 34 that or whatever they're asking for right now, 34? 30. Is that part of the 60,000, or is that?
Yes,
Okay.
it's half.
Right. So 60,000 is a jump too far.
Okay. Is there any other discussion, or do we want to vote on the motion that's on the floor?
Vote, please.
So
All right. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote no.
Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marcia?
No.
Roger?
No.
And I'm a yes.
So
There
thank
is-
you, Brennan,
there was-
for salvaging whatever you're going to do with this discussion as moving it forward. So thank you. I realize we might have made your work more difficult.
It's hard to run a meeting if I don't recognize people to speak. I was going to ask if we wanted to entertain a motion for paying the remaining 4,000 that's in the budget. Is that something this board would like to do as an alternative to the $30,000 payment?
Yes.
No,
I think yes, just because we budgeted it.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I guess so. I move that the town pay the fire district the remaining $4,000 budgeted for the fire protection assessment this year.
You mean from fiscal year 24 operational funds?
Yep.
Okay, so Priscilla has made a motion. Would someone like to second the motion?
do I understand that there was a friendly amendment to make it assessment for fiscal year or from
24.
fiscal year 24 operational funds?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Did the policy really intend to be paying bills on August 14th?
That we have 45-day window after the end of the fiscal year to apply any bills that are received June 30th or before, to have them paid from the previous fiscal year 24. It's in the master financial policy. There's a 45-day window. And this is day 44. So I have a motion on the table. Is there a second? All right, I will second. Any discussion, or would you like to vote? Seeing no discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Gonna vote no.
Priscilla,
Yes.
Marcia,
no,
Roger,
No.
and I'm a yes.
So I'm raising my hand, Pam.
Go ahead, Roger.
So Brennan, what would you, how, as you work with Barry as the steward of the town's bills, what are you going to do with this lively conversation as a next step? Can I ask that?
Well, I mean, at this point, we're not going to be paying this invoice for $30,000. So it will not be in a warrant. And I am gonna, again, I'd reached out last week, seeing if there was an opportunity to try to reconvene the group and work towards this MOU. I had not gotten a response, and I will continue to try to, I think, move this forward. Again, I would like the board to consider putting this onto the November ballot. I think we have a couple of weeks or a month or so to decide if that's appropriate or not. That would be, again, in my opinion, a solution here, other than, kind of the more drastic. We're just, we're gonna have to build a budget, I guess, for fiscal year 26 in the next 2 months. And it would be nice to have some guidance from the folks that are paying the tax bills as to whether they feel there's value in, supporting $120,000, invoice that's going to come from the fire district.
I have a couple of comments on that, Brennan. The first is that August 23rd is the deadline that the town clerk has given us. And the second thing is a question: what would be the source of funding? Is this a funding article that you're proposing? And if so, what would be the source of funding? Because we've already set the tax rate. We've already sent out the tax bills. So if the voters approved an article, what what's the funding mechanism? I'm not clear on what you're
So
proposing.
I'm actually, I guess I'm looking out to fiscal year 26 when we build the budget that's going to be approved at the end of the calendar year, hopefully, November discussion, December approval from the board to set up budget for fiscal year 26. I guess I was not considering that this would be something that would pull money out of our existing budget for 25, which is budgeted at 34,000 right now.
Right, and why, I'm not sure why we wouldn't wait and make it an appropriation article in January to be on the March ballot. That's why I was questioning what would be the funding mechanism that you were proposing. That was my confusion.
That would be
Mary,
another
go
way to
ahead.
do it. I think, again, I would be interested to see how the majority of the town feels about supporting that kind of cost to maintain the fire suppression for the fire district. That would be the reason to ask it in November, and then again build it into a budget.
Mary, go ahead.
If the fire district is set up legally in such a way that it's supposed to raise, have its own taxation system to run its operations, I don't think it would even be legal to ask the taxpayers of the town of Norwich as a whole to pay. I don't think that really works. So, or at least it's a question in my mind, whether that would be legal.
Brennan?
Just to add, so the taxpayers of the town have been paying this cost in property taxes. This is part of the operating budget of the fire department, and we've paid these fire hydrant rental fees, now called fire suppression, for history. So this isn't new that we'd be asking, for monies to be paid to support this. I think it would be a way of determining the amount that the taxpayers of Norwich feel is reasonable for them to contribute. And this whole thing has changed a little bit, right? It used to be an 80-20 split between the fire district and the operating budget, and that's been moved away from as well, where it's now 100% going to being asked to be funded through the operating funds of the fire department through property tax.
Mary, go ahead.
I think that it's avoiding the larger problem to ask the voters to pay these exorbitant bills. There's something that needs to be restructured in this. It's like maybe it's extreme capital costs or something like that, that there needs to be a different, larger funding mechanism for this. And I would not feel comfortable putting this on the ballot for the voters to decide. I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. So
Right. Thank you. Marcia, go ahead.
So 20 VSA 2604 says, unlike other municipalities, a prudential committee may not by law spend more money than its electorate has authorized at a special or annual meeting. And so that basically tells you that they're having to look at how much they have in a budget and how much they're going to pay. I think what Brennan's talking about sounds to me like an advisory article. I mean, anytime you're talking about taxes, which people have to pay, that's not advisory, but this would be advising us in terms of the budget. But I agree with Mary, it begs the larger question, because by putting this tax on people, you're double taxing the people in the district, as Matt pointed out, and you're taxing the people outside the district who are subsidizing the district. Now, it may be that this 80-20 split that Brennan refers to is actually baked into the 1922 certificate that this board back then, filed with the state and is on file by law in our town clerk's office. So I want to see what's in that thing. And what we may have to do is go to council and say, okay, so what's the way to go here, especially if we can't get anybody to sit down at the table and talk to us. But when we finish this, what we're doing, if we put this in a budget is asking the people in town to subsidize this fire district. And I think Mary's right. We really need to know our P's and Q's about this and whether it's okay.
Well, I think that if we're going to put this on a November ballot as an advisory article, we would have to make that decision tonight because our next meeting is the 28th. Lily has said the 23rd is the deadline. And I don't understand why we couldn't do an article very much like we do with the library, which is a separate entity, or with the school district, which is a separate municipality. We could have an article that says, do the voters wish to pay to the Norwich Fire District the amount of X for the fire suppression services, or whatever, however you want to word it. So that would be one way of going about it.
Again, to follow up on that, again, we've got a document that I think will tell us what we've already agreed to. We need to find that document.
Brennan, go ahead.
So just to be clear, because I'm hearing Marcia is vehemently looking to see this original certificate for the fire district. The rest of the board is agreeing with that, and that could be something that if the rest of the board is agreeing with that, we could certainly search for that and put that into the next packet if folks would like to see it. I don't know how else I would disseminate that and comply with open meeting law. So is the rest of the board in agreement that that's a document they would like to review?
I agree with it.
Yeah. Marcia, go ahead.
If it's in the town clerk's office, it could be just left on the counter and we can go look at it and then put it in the packet.
Wouldn't this be one of the documents that Brennan would need in terms of his negotiation with the fire district? And that would fall under his purview to use that, whatever information is there in his talks with the fire district. If it says 80-20, then, and there's been no change in the interim, then this is the premise that we work from. Marcia?
Except that I'm not sure what the mechanism is in terms of reviewing that. I mean, it's a 100-year-old document. So I think it's time to look at it and look at the situation, which is now very different. And also, I mean, I'd like to know what council know about fire districts. This is an ancient kind of mechanism. And, you know, these days, I think they've morphed into more of these, what do you call them?
Water district or something.
Water departments.
Water department.
No, it's an enterprise system, those kinds
Oh,
of
yeah,
things.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how much more we can beat this.
No, let's not.
I'm ready to move on. If the rest of the board is ready to move on, and we'll let Brennan pursue this.
Here.
Okay, all right. The next item is number 8, the DPW request to purchase a new Freightliner. We have a rather extensive proposal in the packet, which I'm sure everyone has already read, and
I did.
Chris Kaufman is here. Does anyone have any questions for Chris on this proposal? Go ahead.
Just a comment. I actually did read all the specs because once upon a time, my husband and I were hay farmers. And so I know a little of the terminology, PTOs and stuff. I found it interesting to see all the details and all the stuff that go in. And I want to say that, as usual, I think Chris has done a great job of giving us plenty of information and including his justification for it and how it's going to be funded. So thank you, Chris.
All right, any other comments, Mary?
I think it's a very timely order. I'm hoping the truck we have lasts through the winter. It sounds like it's, you know, we've gotten a lot out of it. So, yeah.
And I have a question. I only saw one bid in here. And so my question is, how many firms did we reach out to request bids, and how many did we receive?
Well,
Typically, we see a summary of all the bids that came in and who was recommended. So my question is, how many bids did we request and how many did we get back? Brennan?
So I think in the memo, Chris explained that the Freightliner is the model of vehicle that we have on our lot that we are familiar with, that we have basically parts and expertise managing and operating. So I think that was the reason why Chris has gone with that model exclusively here for this request. Chris?
That's not in keeping with our purchasing policy, though. We're supposed to get 3 bids if possible.
Yeah, we don't always have that luxury, and we've done, I think, in the past where we've had exclusively like John Deere tractors, where we've said, we know John Deere tractors, we're going to look at a John Deere as a replacement for a John Deere. So I think that's what we're dealing with here. I want to thank Chris for being here so late. I did not anticipate we'd be talking with you at 8:15. So thanks for sticking with us. I also wanted just to give Chris, at the chair's pleasure, just a chance to talk a little bit about, in general, some of the capital needs of the DPW that we're going to be delving into as we enter the next budget season, because I think it's important to just give people a little awareness of what we're dealing with there with an aging fleet across the board.
Is that something that we can defer to a discussion of capital equipment when we get into the budget for next year? Because we already have the budget that we've set for this year.
It's up to you. I asked Chris to kind of attend the meeting just to be able to inform the board a little bit about his thoughts going into the fiscal year 26 budgeting cycle.
Well, we're going to spend plenty of time on that in the coming months. So in the interest of keeping the meeting moving along, and something is taking longer than I had anticipated, I'd like to defer that. So Marcia, go ahead.
I'd like to hear it. I mean, budget season is going to be on us pretty quickly, and I'm starting to think about it. So if he can be cogently quick, that would be great.
Okay, well, we can allow 3 minutes.
I'm also interested in hearing, the brief.
All right. Well, if you can tell us in about 3 minutes, that would be wonderful.
well, obviously I didn't want to get into detail on the capital plan. We did put a capital plan forward last year, and that was presented to everybody. In terms of, over the next, 20, 25 years, our plan to upgrade the fleet. And more importantly, talking about our 6-wheel dump trucks, we do have an aging fleet. We have equipment that is in their middle years. Our dump trucks are noticeably older than that. So based on the schedule I put together, this rolling shift of purchases that we have to be prepared for. And that's why, we have significant monies for, proposed to be put into designated funds over a period of time, $250,000, that going up substantially, or, appropriately over the next, 2 to 3, 4 years. Costs are going up. In particular on this dump truck purchase, we had to get in line a year just to be able to have the pleasure of ordering it. And that's going to take another year. So I have to be way ahead of the curve. And I think we hit our number really nicely. We hit our mark pretty much within $1,000 of where we anticipated to be, based on our estimate we put together last year. So I thought that was really good. And to Brennan's point, there's a lot of money saved and a lot of internal ability to manage our costs by using similar fleet. There's a lot of interchange between brake cans, tires, repairs, supplies that we already have, infrastructure built in for these Freightliner trucks. Yes, of course, we could start transitioning to another truck fleet, but that would take time, energy, familiarity, training. I think it's a pretty significant change that we would have to sort of plan for by shifting our fleet over. Normally, most DPWs have one group of fleet that they stay with. So that's why you're seeing one particular bid here. And these are the folks that handle Freightliner trucks. So we work with them. So.
All right, thank you. All right,
Mhm.
any other comments or questions? Roger?
I have one question, and I think this relates a little bit to like capital needs conversation. Does this Freightliner truck have a nice, healthy home to live in, right? Like where, in terms of like the garage, right? So like, obviously they go through a lot of wear and tear with our New England conditions. Do we feel like we have a proper setup for all the vehicles that we're going to be needing? And how much should we be thinking about making, better housing for these trucks? Or maybe that's not an issue at all, but I recall there maybe being some.
Yeah, it's not an issue right now. We have all of our 4 dump trucks that are housed in the garage most all times, and except for when the weather's nice and we're doing some activities. But mostly we have a place for it. We'll be getting a trade-in on the old one, so we're getting a trade-in amount, and then this will just replace that one. So.
Okay, but there's no issues with vehicles not being undercover when they need to be.
No, it's just very tight to get into the building. Obviously, when you have a snowplow package and we got 2 inches on either side of the door frame, it's 2 in the morning when you're coming in. It's a challenge. So, but that's something for another discussion for building upgrades. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If
Good work,
seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the purchase of a new Freightliner 1085D plus dump truck in the amount of $218,934 from Fund 07 Highway Equipment Fund, as outlined in the proposal from the Department of Public Works Director dated August 7, 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, if there are no further comments, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a no for failure to follow the master financial policy. Okay, next item is the Casella service agreement.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for sticking with us.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Casella service agreement. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we have a motion?
Yeah, I have a comment. And this is another instance where we sort of have choice of one when we get bids for stuff. And I was also thinking of our beautiful new fire truck, Mr. Dingy or Dingy, or however you pronounce his name,
Yeah.
who unfortunately died very recently. He was like the only bid we wanted to.
Your point being that sometimes
we don't have
financial policy doesn't work for the circumstances.
Yeah.
That's why we need to work on the purchasing policy. And I've been waiting to hear back from department heads on their suggestions. I don't know what I did with it. I had a comparison of the rates from last year to this year, and noticing that
It's not in packet.
Maybe I did it. Anyway, what I did, here we go. I put the other stuff. I compared what this year's rates are compared to last year's rates.
Oh.
And on the first line, the MSW transportation fee, that went up 2%. Everything else in that category went up 6%. The disposal fee went up 11.85%.
Wow.
The recycling processing fee went up 14.8%. The OCC processing, 8.22%. The C&D disposal, 6.23%. Then down at the bottom, the overflow container services, that went up 9.8%, and the emergency service call-in fee went up 49.3%.
Wow.
So I guess we don't want to do any emergency call-ins. So just, I wanted to see what kind of expenses we were looking at in terms of these increases. Some of them are hefty.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, they're not the same across the board. Each category has a different percentage.
So the only way to reduce those figures is to produce less waste. Because we don't have any competition from another waste hauler.
Yeah, we can't bid this out and get 3 or 4 different companies competing. So
Can we,
Roger,
but
go ahead.
Isn't that that's a question maybe for Brennan. So like, Brennan, was this a negotiated contract? Like, was the question, like any insights you can tell us about the conversations you had with the representative? Was anything, I'm sure you asked if you did, what can you tell us, right? Like one of the questions could be like, where can we cut costs, right? And I'm sure if you had a conversation, you asked that question. So can we ask Brennan what to tell us more?
Go ahead, Brennan.
I can try. So we've talked about the rate increase here for several meetings. Remember, this was all part of the discussion about increasing our transfer station fees that we had. The Solid Waste Committee did a very, I think, deep dive into the costs. So I wouldn't be comfortable telling you where cost savings can occur. Certainly, these are the rates that Casella establishes for their service. So I don't think there is really a discussion there of lowering their rates. I think it's, as Mary said, we generate less waste, we pay less money, but the rates don't necessarily change. I will add, and I won't go into any detail because there really isn't any at this point, that I participate in this, what's it called? The regional leadership discussions with other town managers that's hosted by Vital Communities. I've done that since I started here. At the last meeting, we actually had a very interesting discussion about kind of the solid waste environment in the Upper Valley. And there was a discussion and some interest from various towns of having a future meeting where we would invite in folks that are involved in our waste streams and look at the opportunity to leverage multiple municipalities perhaps to find some savings. So that's all I can really tell you about it right now, because that's all I know. But I will say that there is seeming interest from other Upper Valley communities to see if there is a way to save money through maybe a group endeavor. So that might be interesting.
Great, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. All right. If there are no other comments or questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the amendment to service agreement from Casella Waste Management for the period ending March 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. All right. Seeing no further comments or questions, Mary, how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Oh, sorry, didn't see your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
This only goes till March 31st, 2025. Are they doing this like every 6 months or something, Brennan?
No, that's been our original agreement that dates back several years. It was ending on March 31st and it stayed that way.
Okay.
And they're historically late in getting us a renewal.
Oh,
I mean,
great.
there are, like, often they're negotiated in 3-year cycles, which is why I wondered if there was an opportunity to meet with a sales representative. Because but at the same time, a longer contract would undercut our ability to pool with other towns, right? So anyway.
Yeah.
And this rate sheet is effective as of July 1. So even though we're behind in renewing the agreement. The new rates take effect July 1. Brennan, go ahead.
I was just going to agree that I think actually in this case, with the discussion going on as it is, it might be beneficial that we have a shorter term than going to July 1st this year.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, we ready to vote?
Mhm.
Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay, great. All right, next item is the extension of the zoning administrator contract. We've done this many, many times. I did go back and look at the way we had phrased this previously, and so this motion is exactly the same as we had before with the new amounts and dates.
Yeah.
Are there any questions or comments on this? Priscilla?
Or we still just can't find a zoning administrator, huh? They're just not
Brennan, you
around.
want to address the topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's aware from my last report that we had the last round end in a decline of an offer, kind of to the surprise of those involved. I can say we have a number of qualified candidates that we've gotten responses from in the current round of solicitation. So I remain somewhat hopeful and optimistic that the stars will align and that we will find the right person looking at the right time as we are looking for them. We had, as you recall, a long search to find a qualified finance director, and we did, and it's worked out very well. So I just feel like we got to just be patient. This is the labor market that we're in right now, and I'm hopeful that we'll find the right person. Maybe this round will be our lucky round. I guess I would also just add, I do want us to acknowledge the Two Rivers commitment to helping us through. You know, we'd be in real trouble if we didn't have Kyle available to serve in that statutory zoning administrator role. So I just want to acknowledge we're happy that he's with us. He's doing a great job in what he's been asked to do, and he's agreed to stay on here till the end of the calendar year, which hopefully will give us enough time to find a full-time permanent replacement.
Okay, all right, thank you. Marcia, you wanted to say something?
Nope, I'm just nodding agreement that we owe him a big thanks.
Okay, all right.
I
Seeing
saw
no
some-
further,
One question.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I saw some discussion that I think it was in the TRORC committee meeting notes. I must have read this, that they were thinking about making this kind of service kind of an A-line service for their communities that they serve, and having sort of planning and zoning be something that they provide to multiple towns, and thinking about that fee structure would be like. So so I don't think that's probably what would work best for us. We have a lot of planning issues, and it would be wonderful to have someone at the helm of that. But nonetheless, we probably could offer a lot of feedback for our unintended pilot program. So anyway, I don't know if that's been a discussion that's been brought to you, Brennan, but
Yeah, go ahead, Brennan.
If I may.
Sure. Yes, go ahead.
Ma'am, I just waiting to be recognized. So yes, we have maybe been a pilot for how this could work with staffing that's kind of working under the Two Rivers umbrella, but servicing towns. And I think it speaks not only to our town's difficulty in finding this, but I've heard from others that they're also seeking this type of zoning expertise to help their towns. So I suspect it's a market need that they are reacting to here.
I'm hearing an alarm.
I am
Yeah,
too.
sounds like a phone or something.
Just beep, beep, beep,
Was it
beep,
somebody's
beep.
car outside, you think?
I think it's in the building. There's some kind of alarm up in the systems room, right, Brennan? Isn't there an alarm up there that sometimes goes off
The
in that,
furnace room?
in the furnace room?
There is an alarm in the furnace room. Is that what you're hearing?
I think so.
We don't know.
I mean, did it go away?
I hope
It
it went
did.
away.
It went away.
That's
It did,
really,
it
really
stopped.
good news. Maybe it was the dinner bell.
Hopefully.
Okay, if we don't have any other comments or questions about this extension, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the extension of the contract with TRORC for a part-time zoning administrator for 6 to 8 hours per week with a cost not to exceed $13,530 for the period of September 1 to December 31, 2024.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mary. Okay, seeing no further comments. Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes,
Roger,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the grand list errors and omissions request from the listers.
Pam, if I could interrupt just 1 sec.
Sure.
I
Yep.
may have just completely missed this, being a little tired and hungry, but we did approve the Casella service agreement, yes?
Yes, we
Yeah.
just
Yes.
did.
Unanimously.
Yes.
I missed that on my notes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're good.
do you want, should we have a 5-minute recess so Brennan can get,
Granola
Yeah.
bar or something?
Let's marshal on.
Yeah, I think if we move on, we can finish up by 9 o'clock, which was
That would be good.
the original goal, right, Brennan? Okay, the next item is the grand list errors and omissions report from the listers. We have a request to reduce one assessment by $5,000 due to a lot line adjustment. So does anyone have any questions or comments, or should we move to a motion?
It was clear in the description what was happening.
Great, okay, I would entertain a motion then.
I move to approve amending the 2024 grand list to correct an error on parcel number 06-022.000 by reducing the value of this parcel by $5,000 due to a lot line adjustment.
Thank you. I forgot to put the
That's okay.
line in there for the motion maker, the second and the vote. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
Marcia,
yes?
Roger,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay. All right, the next item is the A&R notice of alleged violation, and I'm going to turn this over to Brennan.
Sorry.
You're
You
muted.
muted.
Got it. So yeah, this was just put on the agenda just kind of to notify the town via the select board that we have received a notice of alleged violation from the Department of Environmental Conservation, and it relates to work that was done up the top of the Ladue Road and the Bradley Hill Trails. This was something that had been brought to the board's attention by a neighbor a few meetings ago, and I guess it has escalated at this point to where the state was notified of a alleged violation. They inspected the area and found that that was substantiated. So really the process we're in right now is the town will respond to the letter. We've already really not completed, but shored up the area around the Ladue Road, which is our class 4 road. So we had DPW working up there over last week before we got heavier rains over the weekend again. And they have a plan to continue to do some work there to just kind of mitigate the erosion control is really what we're facing here. So measures to keep silt and sands and stuff from washing downstream into the state's waterways. The trail piece of the violation or alleged violation is being addressed right now by the Trails Committee and the Upper Valley Trails Alliance. We actually had a nice group meeting on Monday and talked through kind of what had happened to lead to this, what our response will be, and the timing of getting that work completed to satisfy kind of the state that this has been rectified. So not good news by any means, but I think it is being managed appropriately. That's all I can really say tonight. I can give an update on the 28th when I have my town manager's report. We might know a little bit more about things in the next week or two.
Marcia?
Brennan, for the notes, it was the intersection of Ladue Road and,
Yeah, so it's a small section of Ladue Road, and then it is a larger section of the Bradley Hill Trail.
There was an interesting summary of the work that was done in the Trails Committee report that was posted, I think either this morning or yesterday, I forget which day, but the Trails Committee summarized what had happened and the work that had been done to date to mitigate some of that erosion. Marcia?
so I'm trying to remember because it's getting on and late, but was the Trails Committee one that was not appointed by this board?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
And they need to come before the board. Yes, that's one of the future committees that we need to address.
So if they responded to, you would have sent them, you were going to send things to all the people that we knew were acting as committees and hadn't been appointed by this board. So did you send something to them?
I did, and I'll turn it over to Brennan to respond to where we are on that.
Yeah, so Craig Lane, who's the chair of the Conservation Committee, is kind of working through some logistics before he makes a submission for, I guess, the reappointment of members onto the Trails Committee.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess we can move on. Did you have another question, Marcia?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, does the violation have a fine?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, we are,
In progress.
we are,
Let's-
it's an alleged violation at this point. We were asked to respond basically with our mitigation, what is going to happen here to rectify the current situation, which again, I think we've acted on really quickly and appropriately. So that is the hope that this doesn't result in an actual fine to the town.
Thank
So
you.
what?
Okay, Roger. Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
So I never really, and well, we should probably not talk about this now because I never really know how any of this is paid for. I know that the Trails Committee has a budget, but is some of this, like it says in the notes that somebody referenced, it says knowledgeable excavators and trail repairers have walked. It's like, who are they? And who are they working under the auspices of? And so I don't know. I don't look like if everyone is happily doing work to the community's benefit, yes, but also like I don't know, I would like to know more and I would like to budget for these things.
One Norwich, right?
It would, yeah. Yep. Anyway, that's like long conversation. So sorry. But anyway.
Yeah, that's another conversation. Okay, so if everyone is comfortable with where we are on this, I would propose that we move on to the next item, which is the approval of the AP warrants. So we have several in the packet tonight. Looks like we have 4. So the first one is for the general fund. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve AP warrant number 1160 in the amount of $162,942.04 to be paid from the general fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, any questions or comments before we vote? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay, the next warrant is for expenditure from the Public Safety Fund.
I move to approve AP warrant number 1159 in the amount of $222.60 to be paid from fund number 47, Public Safety Facility Fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
Thank you. All right, seeing no questions or comments, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, the next one is from the Police Special Equipment Fund.
I move to approve AP warrant number 1158 in the amount of $3,982.40 to be paid from fund number 21, Police Special Equipment Fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, seeing no questions or comments, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
yes,
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, and the last one from the Culvert Reserve Fund.
I move to approve AP warrant number 1156 in the amount of $86,250 to be paid from fund number 54, Culvert Reserve Fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seeing no questions or comments, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, thank you. All right, good. Next one, approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve. Let's do them individually. Yeah. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion on the July 17 minutes?
I move to approve the July 17th, 2024 minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes,
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. The next one, July 24. I do have an amendment for these minutes. I actually took the minutes and I missed a motion that is not included in this. It's under number 9, the town manager's report. There was a motion by Callaway, second Layton, to confirm that the town manager is to expend over $12,000 for clean harbors in connection with the remediation and containment of the Moore Lane Bridge emulsion. That was a unanimous motion, and I missed putting that in the minutes. So I would like to amend those minutes.
Okay. I move to approve the July 24th, 2024 minutes as amended.
I'll second.
excuse me, I have an amendment.
Oh, another one, okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Number 5, it says, the listers update, there was a discussion about whether the open meeting law was followed by the listers in the process of lodging the grand list. It wasn't in the process of lodging the grand list. It was not publishing their agenda for grievance hearings, not recording them on Zoom, and not providing minutes in the required time subsequent to those hearings. And the question was about the effect, if any, on the lodging of the grand list. So it wasn't that they had an open meeting about the grand list. It was the other meetings that should have been open meetings.
Those are all part of the process of lodging the grand list, so I summarized it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's incorrect the way you summarized it.
Are the meetings considered administrative?
Yeah, that's
that
the point. That's the point, that they're subject to the open meeting law.
I thought there was an exemption for administrative work.
No.
Is that true?
I don't have those notes in front of me right now, but the point is that anybody who has tax responsibility effects on tax, they are. Gosh, I said a lot of that last time. If you want me to find it again, I can.
Well, I guess the question,
We
the
don't
question
have,
is,
we don't have a nobody posts a meeting for lodging the grand list. The problem was the effect of open meeting law violations on the lodging of the grand list. So if you want to just change it to, there was a discussion about whether open meeting law violations by the listers would affect the lodging of the grand list. Because remember, people can, if it's not done properly, people can complain about that, and it can have an effect on the grand list. The people
I'm not in favor of making the change. Is it what? Let's take a straw poll. Who wants to make this change to the grand list? Raise your hand. I mean, to the motion.
I do, obviously, because it's not correct the way it's written. But I will lodge the concern, and people can take it as it will, because anybody who knows anything about this would understand that that's really wrong.
Okay. All right. So I have asked to amend the minutes to include the motion that I missed. So, Mary, I think you made a motion to approve the minutes as amended, which would incorporate my motion that I need to add to those minutes when I submit it to
Be
Miranda.
explicit about that.
If you'd like to, that's fine.
So let's see, how would that go? We move to approve the July, and this is a friendly amendment, so Priscilla would have to agree. Move to approve the July 24th, 2024 minutes to include missing motion.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. I'll second that.
Okay. All right. If there's no further comment, Mary, how do you vote?
Oh, yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
No?
Roger?
I'll abstain. I don't think I was at the meeting.
Oh, that's right. You were not at the meeting. Okay. So we have, and I'm a yes. So we have 3 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention. Okay. All right. And then the minutes for July 25th. Would someone like to make a motion on the July 25th minutes?
I move to approve the July 25th, 2024 minutes.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right. If there are no questions or comments, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes?
Roger?
Yes.
Were you at that meeting?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, wait a minute. Well,
No, Roger wasn't at that one. That was the one that was at noontime.
oh, that's right. That was during office hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were at the meeting on the
Abstain.
24th, Roger. You weren't at the meeting on the 25th.
I don't remember. So I abstained for the
The-
last one. I voted yes for this one.
The 25th was the
Fine.
tax rate setting and you were not at that one. Okay. All right. So,
what's the
Roger's an
vote?
abstain.
Abstain?
So it's
I
3
voted
yes.
yes. I'm happy to abstain. I just want to get through this at this point.
So it's 4 yeses, 1 abstention,
4
right?
yes and 1 yes.
Yes, that's
4
correct.
yes, 1
I am a yes. Priscilla,
Yeah.
Mary, and Marcia.
Got it.
Okay. And 1 abstention. Okay. All right. All right. So that's the minutes. All right. The next is correspondence. Okay. Correspondence, we have a response from Peg Mearns on her appointment to the Conservation Commission and the comments made by Laura Brown. We have an email from Cheryl Lindbergh as treasurer asking that we change the municipal rate that was set to include the Windsor County rate and the local agreement rate. That was not approved to be on this agenda. We have a letter from Sarah Raitt as a cover letter to the Thetford Local Hazard Mitigation Program. They would like our review and comment. This is typically something that comes from the town manager and the fire chief. So what's the board's pleasure? Should we ask the town manager and the fire chief to get together on this and write a response? How should we proceed?
I think that if town manager agrees, yes, I think that would be fine. It was interesting to me, having participated in one of these reports, just to see the issues in Thetford, you know, like water, which understand from other publications coming out of Thetford, like, and side note by Lee Shen, like water just in general, not only the flood aspect, but also people having potable water from various water systems or not. It's a big deal in Thetford. So It was interesting to read.
Well, they have asked for us to review and comment. It says, please contact me if you have any comments on the plan or any questions. So I guess we'll leave that to Brennan and the fire chief if they have any questions or comments, or how do you want to do this?
I'm curious, are all the towns supposed to do this? I mean, are we supposed to put together a thing like this too? Anybody
We
know?
do, yes, we do. I've participated in that.
Well, I know we do a local hazard mitigation plan, but I didn't know it got submitted to other towns.
Well, I'd never heard of that before.
Okay, Marcia?
I would agree that this should go through Brennan's office, and I was just gonna note, I think it's really critical. If you look on the goals and policies on page 53 of the report, it really focuses on conservation and planning so that there are buffer zones and greenways and limitations on impervious land cover, a general mindfulness about this water flow. And I think it's, you know, it goes to your fiscal planning, your development planning, and it really underscores the need for an integration and communication between our conservation planning, DRB, DPW work. It's all going to save us money if we do this. So I'd be very interested to know when we did our last work with TRORC on this and have an up-to-date hazard mitigation plan before we go much farther with the work of this town.
Brennan? Brennan, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
So I guess I was just going to add, this is kind of statutorily required when a town makes an adjustment, I think, to a master plan or anything that affects an abutting town. That's why it was sent to the select board. I have no problem kind of asking the chief to look this over, and I can look it over as well. I don't know that Sarah was asking for any sort of action out of the board. So it really is just kind of a receive and file type of request, I believe.
Okay. All right, thank you. The next correspondence is from Stephen Hepburn, and he said, please may we ask the select board to confirm the authorities and duties granted by the select board to the rec council and any charter or terms of reference that you expect the council to be working under. I looked at the handbook and there were a lot of blanks in that page to be still filled out. So I wasn't quite sure how to respond to this request. Marcia?
Yeah, I mean, we have to do some research to find those things because not everything is on the website. So that's part of the work that we still need to do on that handbook. In terms of his concern about an open meeting law violation, I'm concerned that he's feeling threatened by this board, and he shouldn't, because this board can't do anything about that. And even if, I mean, we don't even know if there was an open meeting violation. So I really would like to reassure him that that's not going to be anything to worry about.
I sent that as a resident of this town, not as a member of the select board. And I still think that there was a violation, and I asked for a response. So that's where that sits at this moment.
Well,
But
please, please read the penalty and enforcement section, because if you haven't done that, you need to, but we shouldn't be making people feel, nobody should be making, whether you're a citizen on a board, whether you're a board member, it's not up to us to say somebody's violated.
I did not say that they had violated. I
Okay,
asked
good.
if they had followed the open meeting law in their their warnings of their meetings and in timely posting of their minutes. That was my question. And as a citizen, I can ask those questions.
Yeah, we read it.
Right. Okay, so back to the issue of how to respond to this request for confirming the authorities and duties and any charter. How should we proceed with that? I don't want to ignore him, but I'm not quite sure how to respond either.
But
Is this something that you're going to keep working on, Marcia, to fill in those blanks, or do you want other people to get involved?
Do you remember I wrote a memo, and the memo said that what we should probably, as a board, decide to do is to ask people, what do you think your charter is? Because people are being appointed to things and they think that they're supposed to be doing something. And presumably somebody on those committees has an idea. And so I thought, if we can't find any documentation either on the website or in the town manager's office, then start with asking the committees who are doing some work, and then the board has something to work with to say, that isn't being one Norwich. We want to sort of, ask you to work in this direction or whatever. So I don't think that there's any more I can do on it until we as a board decide how we want to proceed and fill in those blanks.
You did have some comment about their charter on that page 68 of the handbook.
Is it charter or charge?
Charge.
Well,
Charge, right?
and I did do some research on the various reserve funds that have been set up. And the first thing on the list is number 5, Recreation Facilities and Improvements Fund. And in the March 5th, 1995 town meeting minutes, it says, Goodrich also said that the town has taken over the recreation department, but that the town would be paying the same amount as last year to the recreation department. So we've taken over the rec department as of March of 1995, but I'm not sure what they had in place. I think they were a 501c3 and they got absorbed by the town. So I'm not sure where you see us going with this, Marcia, on this handbook. What's the next step?
The next step, again, is that we look at the holes. There's a hole, and we say, all right, we don't know what the charge is, but if the body thinks they know, they should tell us. And then we can have something to talk about, because right now we don't have anything to talk about.
So when you say we, do you want this on an agenda and we pass a motion that someone will take this responsibility?
Yeah. A couple of meetings ago, I put in the packet a memo that said, step 1 is to send out these messages that you've sent to the people that we know have committees that are out there formed and we haven't approved them. So we're in the process of that. Then there's a step 2, which is looking at the process and working on looking at the process for how things are created, what those committees are, and the handbook gives you details of what I've been able to find. Now, if somebody else can come up with some information, great. But if not, then I suggested that we write to the committees and say, so what is the charge that you've been working under? And then we bring that to a meeting. And I think the logical way to do this is one committee at a time.
And we proposed something, like we had 3 questions that some committees did fill out for us. I
That was
think
a while ago, right?
when I was still chair, and so we never, as so classic, never really moved with that information. But I think like nonetheless, like it bears committees change, right? So it bears repeating a similar kind of process. And I think too, Pam, like I don't think, I won't speak for him. I'm not, but if you read between the lines of this message, I don't think like we could answer it literally and provide a charge and, or do this work of like collaborating on a charge. But I think the question is really, does this committee even report to the board? Like, what is your investment in asking these series of questions? So it just begs like good collaboration. And that's all. Like, I don't think Mr. Hepburn was actually asking
Well,
for a charge.
we can talk.
I think he was
Right. Well,
asking you to back
we
off.
talk about what needs to be done and it doesn't get done. And so my question is, how do we get it done?
I think Marcia had
So
a
I
great
guess we can put that on a future agenda and we'll decide who's going to do what so that it gets done. And we don't just talk about we doing it.
Can I?
Sure.
I'll proceed and work on this if you want, but I've been waiting for the board to make a decision, and essentially, the next step would be to write to these various folks and say, this is the charge that we've got, just copy and paste. This is what's in the handbook about you. How is that different from what you think you're doing? And how should it be changed? Then we've got something to talk about as a board. So I'm happy to take the document and send copies of the page about a particular committee to that committee and say, tell me how this is right or wrong. And then hand it over to Brennan for the packet.
Well, I thought you started that process and the board was fine with you running with this project back when you were still the chair. So that's why I'm confused as to where we are in this process and why there's all this hesitation. I thought we had approved you moving forward with this and bringing us the information.
No, I
Maybe
don't
I'm the
think-
only one that thinks that.
What I remember was go ahead and produce the document and then we'll discuss what we're going to do with it. So I've done the document and then I brought it back and I had a memo that said, this is where I am. How do you want to proceed? So if you want me to keep going, I'll have stuff for you. I can do
I'm
it.
fine with that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yes.
If you're willing to do it, it would be very good. But I
So
would
somebody
be
make a
sure to
motion?
call it, well, let's see. How would this go? I move to authorize Marcia Kelway to contact committees regarding their charge.
Got it?
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, if there's no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes?
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, we look forward to hearing back from you, Marcia, on what you've been able to get from the committees.
Okay.
All right, good. And if you'd like, Marcia, I can send you this document that I have on the history of reserve funds of what I've got so far. I don't know if it would be helpful.
I mean,
Because sometimes,
if it's got a charge, money, I'm not interested in. I don't think we are.
okay, all right. All right. So I would entertain a motion to accept all of the we had one more piece of correspondence, sorry. We have the tax rate calculation that was used on July 25th in calculating the tax rate that was set at that meeting. And it was just because it wasn't in a packet, it was
Oh,
put in this
okay.
packet just for general information. So that's the last of correspondence. So now entertain a motion for accepting the correspondence.
I move to accept all correspondence.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Seeing no discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, unanimous. Okay, great. All right, it is now 9:10 PM. And our next
Would you like a motion?
is adjournment. Yes, I would entertain a motion.
I
to
move
adjourn.
to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Mary, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Priscilla?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Unanimous. We are adjourned at 9:10 PM.
Thank you.
Pretty good.
Thank you,
All right,
everybody.
great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Recording stopped.
Good night.
Night, everybody.